everyone. Welcome to week 2 of the Duffle Sew Along. So excited to be here with all of you. And I hope you got all your supplies. I did have a few people asking, is it too late to join? And it's not too late to join. So if you haven't signed up for the newsletter, be sure to do that. There's a link in my profile. And we'd love to have you join along. So we are sending out the email for week 2 either later this afternoon, which this live is way later than I had originally planned today, but life. So it will either go out later this afternoon or tomorrow morning. So if you sign up before then, you can get week 2, and then we'll link to week 1's email in the second email, so then you'll have access still to all the things that we talked about in week 1, which was just going over supplies. So anyways, so this week we are talking about cutting our fabric and quilting our fabric and having everything prepped and ready to go. So for week 3, which is our final week of the sew along, we will just be assembling the bag. So I just wanted to share quilting tips first and then go over some cutting, and then we're gonna do the fabric covered handles. I'll just do a quick demo on all of the favorite tools and notions and stuff that I use for that. Okay, so first off, I like Soft and Stable, you know that. So I just wanted to share, if you've ordered a package of Soft and Stable, it may have, can you see that like crease in there, right? It may have a crease in it from being folded in the package, right? But I just want you to know that it comes out really easily if you just use a little steam in your iron. So my favorite iron is a Reliable iron, and I can tell you all the reasons why, but can you see the steam coming out of it? That's one of the reasons I like this iron so much. So I just wanted to show you how awesome it is to get the steam, or to get the creases out of your Soft and Stable. This is one of my favorite things about Soft and Stable, is it just takes a little bit of ironing, and you can see that this is now like totally flat again, and the crease is gone. So because it can withstand the heat too, these are washable, all the things, you know, like that. You can wash and dry this when your bags are finished too. So I just wanted to share that. And then how I like to quilt fabric. I was going to grab a piece of fabric so I could show you. But basically what I like to do is put the piece of fabric on, and I like to iron it. Iron the fabric right to the Soft and Stable. The Soft and Stable is not fusible, but I feel it has the soft tricot lining on it that I feel like it sticks pretty well to the fabric. And then I usually just use pins, and I like to use the flathead pins because then they're just kind of out of the way. So I iron the main fabric on and put pins, and then I flip it and iron the lining side on, and then flip it and then repin that from pins on the top. I don't like leaving pins on top and bottom. And then I just smooth out the top again, make sure it's all good. And then there's so many different ways to quilt it. If you're quilting on your domestic machine, you can do crosshatch. Lots of rulers have like 45-degree lines on them, or 60-degree lines, or 30-degree lines. If you're doing patchwork, I've done it where I just do a 1/4 inch away from the seam on each. And actually I have a video of me quilting one of those in one of my reels. So I'm going to post that in the email newsletter so that you'll be able to have access to that right there, the link, so you don't have to go find it. Because I've quilted lots of these bags on my domestic. I also quilt a lot of them on my long arm because I have a long arm. I just use it a lot, which is what I've done with my bag that I'm making with you guys. I did put it on my long arm. So if you have a favorite long arm quilter, ask them to quilt Soft and Stable. They'd probably love to do it for you. So if you need your fabric quilted, we'd be happy to quilt it for you if you ever need. Okay, and so I know people like fusible too, so I wanted to share, this is one of the products that I have tried. This is June Taylor's Quilt Basting Spray. So I know a lot of people like to do spray basting when they're basting their quilts. You can do the same thing with your fabric for the duffel bag as well. So this is the only one I've actually used personally, and it's worked great. So this is June Taylor's Tailor Quilt Basting Spray. So you can get your hands on that. I would recommend spraying it outside because it can overshoot and get things a little sticky. But I felt like it was repositionable too if I needed to like reposition things, so that worked really good. if you want to make soft and stable fusible. There are fusible products like Soft and Stable out there. I think Pellon has a fusible, and I think Boswell has a fusible. I've never used either of those, but I know that there are options out there, and they're probably great as well. So, I'm just a by any fan. So, anyway, so that's the tips on quilting I wanted to share. And I see that there's probably comments and stuff, but I can't read them from where I'm standing. So I'll go back and try and answer any questions at the end. So if you have questions, be sure to ask them. Okay. And then I just wanted to go over cutting your quilted fabric. So I've heard from a lot of people over the years that cutting into their quilted fabric can be scary. And I get that because you just spend all this time quilting. Real quick, before I move on to that, I want to talk about directional fabric. If you are using a directional print, you do need to cut out, according to the directions, the two pieces and seam them together for your bag body. Only the bag body needs to be directional because it's one that goes up around, right, on both sides. So you will want to cut that and piece it before you quilt it, because then it will be right? I've actually quilted it and realized it was directional, and I've done some doctoring to make it work, and you can try that, but just much easier if you piece your directional fabric prior to quilting. Okay, so I have my fabric already quilted here. Again, this is Oh Lucky Lucky coming from Ruby Star Society. This is Alexia Abeg. This is the canvas tumbling block print. And it is so cute. I've been really, really excited to make this duffel bag with you. So I hope you can kind of see. I know that it's flat, but let's see. I think that you'll be able to at least get an idea of how I like to cut, because I just want to I've never been able to share cutting tips like this in a sew along, and so I'm really excited to be able to show you on camera. Okay, where did my ruler go? I moved it over here. Okay, so I have my fabric quilted. So I've already cut out my bag body out of this fabric because I didn't want to do that on screen because it's really big. I know that was probably more beneficial to see, but I have limited space. So, but I just wanted to show you. So I have my selvage edge here and basting stitches from quilting. So I'm just going to, this edge is already straight. So what I like to do if you're just quilting yardage is just get one straight edge. And that's so helpful when you're starting to cut, because you just want a straight edge to go off of. And then what I'm going to do is just square up this other side. And a tip I learned when working at a quilt shop when I was just beginning quilting is that you measure off your ruler, not your cutting mat. And I have found that over the years it's more accurate to measure off of your ruler rather than your cutting mat. So that's how I like to do bags as well. And so I'm just going to make a second cut here to straighten up. I'm going to flip it. To straighten off this edge, so then I can start cutting my my end panels and my end pockets. All right, so I have a straight edge here, and then I'm gonna line up this straight edge with a line on my ruler so that I can get two straight edges, right? So I'm just gonna cut this off and I'll have two straight edges, right? So here's my little scrap. I'm gonna throw that away. And then I'm gonna make sure from the pattern that I'm cutting the right sizes that I need. My pattern fell off my table. Okay, and so if you haven't seen this ruler, it's like a new favorite of mine. This is the Big Easy ruler by Creative Grids. It is 12.5 by 24.5, so it's very big. But I love it because I can use it to cut a lot of sizes of things. So I'm going to cut out my end panels and my pockets. So, and I cut with my right and left hands all the time, so hopefully that doesn't make anyone nervous. I've done it for years. So anyway, so there we go. I have one piece done. So that's just how simple it is to cut this out of quilted fabric. And I know that maybe some of you are making patchwork, and so you just have your patchwork sewn for your ends panels, and so you'll just cut those out. If those shrink up a little bit during quilting, just cut them as close to size as you can, but everything shrinks up about equally, and you should be okay with with that. Just try and cut it as close to the measurement as you can. Okay. Alright, second end panel cut. Now I'm going to cut my pockets. And then after everything is cut, one of the first things I like to do after look, there's one thing I love about Creative Grids rulers is that they have the 1/2 inch and the 1 inch for cutting, so then I can flip the ruler and get often a lot of the sizes that I need for this. So, okay, so I got my pocket, and one more pocket to go. Yeah, I can turn that, that will be a little easier. I'm working on like a really small ruler, or mat, so I've got to make sure I'm not cutting on my table. Alright, perfect. I got all of my pieces cut. Okay, so the very next thing I'm going to do with all of my cut pieces is do a little victory lap around them. You've heard that term maybe with your quilter. I'll move this back on here so you can see. But I've already done that on this piece, so hopefully you can see on the edge I just did an 1/8 inch stitch around the quilted piece. And that keeps your quilting from coming undone, your stitching, which is really good. But it also compresses the edge of this. So when you're assembling your bag and sewing all of the layers together, sometimes it can get thick. So don't skip this step because it really does help in compressing this seam area when you're like sewing your bag together and doing the finishing binding on it. So, alright, so that covers quilting and cutting and stitching around your pieces. So the rest of the cutting you're going to be doing is your bindings, right? So I have my pocket bindings cut, I have my zipper bindings cut, and I cut out my bias binding and I already seamed it together so I can cut my bias strips off of this for the bias binding. And then I cut out my handle and my carrying strap as well. So I wanted to go over making handles with fabric, and then if you do that this week, if you're doing just like the Poly Pro covered in fabric straps, then you'll be ready for assembly next week. So anyone else who's doing like a decorative webbing that's already finished, you don't need to watch this part, but it is full of great tips, so it might be helpful later on if you want to watch it. So I've already got my carrying strap made, but I just wanted to show you. Okay, so I've got my long handle. I seamed them together with a 1/2 inch seam, which just helps when you're flipping it to kind of have a wider seam that you can kind of try and lay it flat. I've pressed my seam open, so now I'm going to turn my tube with the tube turner. So I just wanted to demo the tube turner. This thing is like my favorite thing. I was teaching a class on a bag probably like 13 years ago, and someone in the class had one of these, and I had been turning mine with like a safety pin, and they were like, just use this, and I was like, I should be paying you to take my class or to take your class, because this seriously changed everything when I was flipping fabric for handles. So it has been one of my favorite things for this. Alright, so a tube turner comes with a plastic tube and a stick, right? 2 parts. I always stick my plastic tube in first, and I do like I like measure with my thumb, if that makes sense. Like I do like a thumb's length end, so the tube is in here, right? So that's where the tube starts, thumb length. And then I use this, and I actually prefer the non-pointy side, I don't know why. I'm gonna just like jam this in here. So you don't want the stick to go all the way through the tube, because that will just go all the way through. So it's gotta like jam up in there. And then you're just gonna pull the fabric on, scrunch it onto the plastic tube. During the process, you never want to let go of either of the sticks, because it can get really complicated to fish them out of your tube if you have to. Okay, so because we're making a really long handle, we're not going to be able to scrunch the whole handle onto the tube. So the way I like to do it is grab my stick, so I'm holding onto my stick, and then here's the tube, and then I'm going to just pull the bottom scrunch off of that. And then I'm going to start scrunching again. So now I'm holding the stick and holding the tube at the bottom and scrunching the fabric on the top until I get to the end. See, now you can see my plastic tube and my stick is right here and the right side of my fabric. So we'll just pull this all the way through. So there is, oh, I could have pulled it off the other edge, but we'll pull it off. So now we can take that and then you can just work your stick right out the top end. And there we have it. We have our handle. So then what we're going to do is iron this with the seam in the center. So I'm just going to iron it with that seam right in the center. And I'll do that for the whole handle, but I'm not going to make you watch me do that. Hopefully you saw that on the camera. Yeah, okay. And then this is just a scrap of Polypro, but I'll cut one the length that I need, and I added a big huge safety pin on the end. And I did it about a 1/2 inch in. If you do it right on the edge, there's a chance it can pull off, so be sure to give yourself some, like a 1/2 inch at least of the webbing, the Polypro webbing. So I'm just going to feed it in there. And this is just to show you. And then you'll just pull this on and you'll just feed this through the whole handle. Like that. So it will look like that. You'll feed it through the whole handle. And then what you'll do is tuck these raw edges in so it's all finished. So that this handle edge is all finished. And then you'll do a top stitch on it. So if you can see on this, I don't think you're going to see because I matched the thread, but I'll try and show you. You can see I did an 1/8 inch top stitch around this whole thing. So now I have my carrying strap ready. This is my handle that I'll get ready. So I'll have my handle ready for assembly, and then I'll also cut my hardware tab off of the tube as well. So there you go. That's week 2. These are going much faster than I had originally thought they would, but I'll go through and answer questions now. And send me a DM or an email if you have questions. I'm really happy to help. You can respond to the newsletter emails if you have questions as well. So, okay, let me come around and see if I can answer any questions. Hello. Okay, we're gonna go through. Do you have several pieces of soft and stable? Can you use those for the bag? Yes. Oh, that's a great question. So often what I like to do with soft and stable, because you have random cuts of it left, I like to cut an edge straight, a straight edge, and then cut another piece with a straight edge, and then I just get fusible interfacing, and I cut 2-inch strips, and then I iron them on, but butted next to each other. That's why like a straight edge is really valuable, because then it's just like a really clean line, and then I fuse the fusible on one side and the other. I do it on both sides. I've done that many times because I have lots of random cuts left over of soft and stable, and it's a really great way to use it. I didn't like butting them up and zigzagging like you can with batting, only because it compresses the soft and stable in that seam. So I prefer the fusible method to join soft and stable pieces for quilting. So great question. I have a Juki. Am I able to make this pattern with my machine? Any tips if it skips stitches due to thickness? Okay, so I have made lots of bags on a Juki, not my Juki. I don't know exactly what the model is, but as a retreat goer, I have borrowed a few Jukis to sew, and I've made bags on them. I think one of the tips that I'll share here, and then I'll share again when we're doing assembly week, one thing that I have learned is not skipping that victory lap stitch, and then using a lot of wonder clips. And I know that that seems excessive, but sometimes I use a lot of wonder clips, and then I leave it overnight, and then I sew it the next day, because then the wonder clips kind of compress it in place, so that helps with the thickness. So there's just a little tip there, but having a fresh needle, using a top stitch 9014 needle is helpful, and I'm trying to think if there's other things. I'll share tips next week if I think of anything else with sewing over thickness. Let's see if I missed anything else. Yes, tips for skip stitches on thick parts. We'll definitely go over more of that next week. Oh, your shirt is awesome. Oh, thank you. This says, sorry, can't quilting by. This is from Heart Made Threads, and they're actually our sponsor for the sew along. So one of you will win one of their shirts. So I love this shirt. It's been such a fun one. Love the fabric. Oh, I love it too. I'm so excited. What size is your ruler you're using? So that is the big easy ruler from Creative Grids. It's 12.5 by 24.5. Let's see if I'm missing any others. That is magic. I bet that was probably the tube turner. So do they still make that tube fabric turner? Yes, they do. I have a bunch on my website. I carry the Prim sewing brand, mostly because they're hot pink, and who doesn't want hot pink? Safety pins still have a purpose. Yes, only the large ones. Those are the only ones I keep that in. And it says, will you be uploading this to YouTube? Yes, this will also be uploaded to YouTube, so you can use this video to pause and go back and speed up, all those things. Sorry that it will be filmed for Instagram and not YouTube. That's nice. No waste, soft and stable. Yes, it's great. What is your stitch length for the top stitch, handle, strap, and stitch length for the bias binding? I use 2.5 for pretty much everything on the whole bag. I need that turner. Yeah, you do need that turner, especially if you're going to do fabric covered handles or any tube turning. Okay, well, that's it. I got through all the questions. I hope you're enjoying the sew along. I can't wait to see your bags. Some people have been a little impatient for my weeks, just teasing. Some people just are excited and they've already finished their bags. And I love that. And I love that people are excited about the bag and getting it finished. So I'm really excited to show you more progress on my bag. I actually got fabric squares from the Rusted Silos bag swap. And I was hoping to get those pieced together so I could quilt that as well, but we'll see. Maybe this week I'll have a little more time. So anyways, thanks so much for joining us for week 2. I hope you guys all have a great week, and we will see you next Monday.